And you are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is our board policy meeting today. Pardon me. Board policy review meeting. And the first on is the board member resignation, BBC. Anyone have anything on this other than the change in the capitalization?
I have no comments here.
I didn't see anything when I reviewed it either that stuck out to me that needed to be added or taken away.
All right.
Yeah, but this is just a 5-year review for this one.
Right.
So.
BBD.
Yep. So this is the policy and regulation, Dr. Cunha, that you requested at the last meeting.
Right.
For us to revisit. So
I don't think we had anything on BBD. It's on the reg.
Yeah, and if you looked at the memo, okay, that's kind of where my question is depending on how binding we want some of this to be, the language that was recommended that's in the reg right now, we may want to move that into the policy as opposed to having that in the reg. So that's just something to think about, is if we're comfortable with everything that's in the policy now, know that we might want to move some of what's in the reg into the policy.
Okay. Well, I feel pretty strong about our participation as board members, and I think particularly going into these next couple of years, as an organization, we're making a lot of evolutions. And I think that, as board members, we have to be accountable for some of the decisions and the directions that we're taking. And so whatever it is that we can do to send the message to all the board members of the importance that we actually have to take into consideration in our services, I think that's an important thing. So whatever we can do to strengthen that is what I'm for.
Okay, my questions aren't on this. My questions are on BBD. When we get to the reg, then maybe let's talk about, do we want to move them into the policy itself? Kevin, since you are my policy wog, you're the one who know this best. What are the advantages of moving from a reg into the policy as opposed to leaving it in the reg?
Yeah, so for me, the two advantages of moving it to the policy is, one, the board will actually vote on it, where the regulations, the board does not formally vote on. Those are implementation by the superintendent. So if this is really something that you want to hold all board members to account for, I believe having it be something that's voted on, it makes the most sense.
Okay.
And then also the level
and what
of
you're saying
specificity.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Is everyone in agreement with that?
I am.
Dr. Hansner? I can't. Yes?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yes.
Okay. All right. All righty.
So what's in red is the language from the conversation Amy had with MSBA, Kelly over there, about recommended language of things we may want to include in this. At the time, she was operating from the policy, and I recognize we have both a reg and a policy. I put it in the reg just because right now it seemed like the most logical place to put it. But my thought was that the entire excusal process, we might want to move that whole section to the policy. If not or just move the whole reg to the policy.
I would like to see the definitions also in it, because definitions speak, especially when we start talking about the differences between the meetings.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we can move the whole thing into the policy.
Now, I have some questions on this.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to 2 and 3 is where 2, 3, and 4, I think, are the most important part here. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with number 1. But it says may choose to excuse absences. My understanding, if it says may choose, the whole board still has to vote with a 2/3 vote for this to occur. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct?
That's what's listed in 4. Yes. And then, so what Kelly had talked about was listing under number 2, what are some things that the board kind of universally agrees on? These are valid reasons to be excused from a board meeting. And that's where we have, if you're sick, if you have a death in the family, if you're attending another district function that's taking place at the same time. Is there anything else that we would want to call out as this is a universally recognized acceptable reason to miss a board meeting besides the 3 that are listed there?
I would have put on A, I would have included on that hospitalization of communicable disease.
Yeah.
And I would also suggest including like your children or parents that you're responsible for.
I'm sorry, Amy, I can barely hear you.
I said I would also suggest including your children or parents that you're responsible for. You know, if
Under
they have
death?
Ailments.
So I thought about all those things, but then I also thought to myself, I mean, where we get in a risk of being dismissed from the board is if we're missing 3 or more of these meetings. In other words, if you have to take a day off because you got a sick kid, you're going to miss 1, but you shouldn't be missing multiple meetings, 3. And
That's a good point.
then there's item number 3, which is there's, you know, if it's something that's not on that list, we can make an
We
exception.
included.
So that's why I was initially thinking the same comments as everybody else was, but then I thought to myself, you know, that would be kind of included in number 3, and maybe doesn't need to be specified then, because the assumption is
I would agree with you, Doc, because my concept still is, if you miss 3 meetings in a row, you've missed 6 weeks or a month and a half. And so in other words, the next time you come would be 2 months later from the last, you have not fulfilled your duties for 2 months. I mean, I feel sorry for the people. I understand everybody's got obligations, but the board has to go on. I'm not sure do I feel sorry for someone like that, but if they're missing 3 in a row, that's 6 weeks or a month and a half.
and again, at least my hope would be, certainly while I'm on the board, when extraordinary circumstances arise, we would vote to
The board
excuse.
can make that, I guess you could say a leave of absence.
Yeah.
We had a gentleman on the board years ago, Jim Westbury. And Jim Westbury had a series of small strokes, was placed in had to be in a rehab section, and he had missed. He clearly missed over 3 in a row, Amy. And we never invoked this because the board realized, death was imminent, to be honest with you. And we didn't feel that was the appropriate thing to do. But it still went back to the fact he wasn't any help with the board at that time. And your duties are to the board. Your duties are to the school.
So I was kind of wondering about the blank space in number 3.
So
If
that's
a
where
board
I wanted
member's-
to have some dialogue with the board members of what you would see as appropriate there. Of if a member is requesting to be excused for an absence that's not included in the list above, then so there's a couple ways you could go. One is if it's one of those 3 under number 2, it's a 2/3 vote. And if it's under number 3, then it needs a unanimous vote. That's one option. Another option would be that the excuse would need to be provided to the board president, and it's at their discretion if they submit that to the board or not.
Yeah.
That's an option. So there's a couple different directions you could go with it, but I'm not sure what, as a board, you feel is the most appropriate there. Is it a unanimous vote? Is it needs to be submitted by the board president? Or is there some other litmus test that you all would like to utilize?
I don't see where that would really be an issue till it came to be the third one in a row, would you? I mean, or maybe that's personal.
Yeah, I concur in thinking what you're saying. The time frame and the missing of that amount of time for the business that the organization finds itself having to conduct, it could handicap certain aspects of movement within the organization accomplishing goals that we've set. So I think that you're correct in reference to the 3 in a row scenario being key point in reference to the dismissal aspects.
What about again, for number 3, if the board member is requesting to be excused for an absence that is not included in the list above, then the board member's attendance at prior meetings, attendance record of prior meetings will be reviewed as part of the vote.
Okay.
I don't know if that would be.
So that gives that. So when you say prior meetings, that would include committee meetings that they're on, and
Right.
No, regular board meetings. The idea is just being that if somebody is
Okay,
is
so we would
for,
specify out regular meetings, right? Okay.
yeah, but again, I don't know if that is kind of addressing the the issue at hand, because obviously if somebody says I got the flu, we don't really want to hassle about them. We'd rather they just not show up and keep it at home.
Yeah.
but at that point in time, you can in turn, if in fact that you're able to do it as we're doing now, you've got the Zoom capability,
right,
to still be able to make the meeting.
Yeah.
Correct.
And particularly if it's a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Like I said, if a board like myself, I wasn't at the last meeting, and my reason was my my wife requested I be home for Valentine's Day,
Which is a life-death situation.
well, I mean, it was but true, right? But in terms of it was a quality of life decision for me.
Yes,
But
it
in
is.
terms-
I
but in terms of
I consider that a life-death situation.
But should I request? Yeah, should I request to be excused for that absence? It might be relevant to have the board, in considering whether or not to excuse that absence, review how many regular meetings I've been attending. Have I been missing every third meeting?
Yeah.
Or am I, that might be something that would be of relevance and should be reviewed. Maybe again, that's the thought process. Again, I'm not sure if this is if that would address the concerns, but
Yeah, then, so Dr. Asner, would it be language there of something along the lines of, in the blank space, then the board may consider, or the board may approve that absence and will factor in overall board member attendance in their decision-making process?
or even just then as part of, let's think about how to word this, then the board will review, or the board will review that member's attendance of regular meetings or history of attendance of
I
regular
think that
meetings.
I would put that in 4 when it says consideration, of individuals' past attendance shall be taken into account.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But on 3, if a board member is not, I don't see, I'll be honest with you, who cares? It's the third one that counts, And if the third one counts, I think I need to look at what he did before. I don't really care what the issue is anymore, because it may be a situation where this could be ongoing, and if it's going to be ongoing, possibly that individual should withdraw for the good of the district.
So
I'm not sure I want a 3.
So if it was the first absence for the person and they were asking for it to be excused because their car broke down, you would not excuse that, and you would just have that count as an absence,
Right. Yeah,
would be the practice. And so you would limit excusal to A, B, and C.
I would then add, I would then suggest that under,
A.
yeah, and that, so in that case, I think number 2 is too exclusive. If we're getting rid of 3, then I would suggest we add item D under number 2. Other, or other extraordinary.
Okay, other extraordinary. You could have a tornado. You could, I mean, you could have an ice storm. I mean, you could have a severe car accident. Yeah.
And that, again, yeah, my car broke down, maybe not excused. I had a car accident. Yeah, maybe you should be excused, right? I don't have a communicable disease, but everybody in my house has COVID. Maybe we want you to stay home, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you do have the flu, and let's be clear, if I've got the flu, I may be up for participating in a meeting, and I might not be. I might need to be in bed for the next 24, 48 hours. So I would suggest, adding some, well, I think we do have to have some type of flexibility other than those 3 reasons. But I think we need to be exercising some discretion there, because we want to recognize that for most of those reasons, you really would only miss 1 meeting.
Yeah.
In any case.
Put D, how about extraordinary situations? I mean, leave it vague.
Yep. So we can do that. And then we would cut number 3 out.
Cut out 3.
Yep, that's fine.
But I would like, as Dr. Asner had stated or had recommended, something on 4 that talks about consideration of an individual's past attendance.
Well, I want to be careful here. Because so if it's consideration of the individual's past attendance, that's going to be very subjective. My suggestion was that we specifically review that person's past attendance. So we don't just, because otherwise somebody might say, yeah, the person hasn't been here for a while. That would be considering it. Reviewing it would be saying this person has missed this many visits, or this is the first time that the board member has asked to be excused ever, right? They never miss meetings.
Then let's do it as review.
Yep.
I think it should be reviewed.
Reviews
So that all the board members get that information, and then they can consider. I want to be careful about saying that it should be submitted to the board president, because maybe the board president is the one who's asking to be excused. I don't want it to I don't want this to sit on one person's shoulders. Yeah.
This is a board's decision.
Yeah.
All right. Is everyone in agreement with that? So we move this reg then in its entirety. Now, Kevin, do you think we don't need to meet again on this? Can we bring this back for a first reading then?
That was my plan. I was going to bring it as a first reading in March.
Okay.
And you'll see it in the first reading, but it'll be exactly the revisions that you just listed.
That sounds good. Okay. Last but not least, homebound instructions.
I'll start with a comment. This is on the first page, 1 subsection A. And this is one of those personal peeves that seems to really hit.
What's the difference? You're going to answer. What is the difference between a physician's assistant and a nurse practitioner?
Oh, well, I guess I'll answer that first. It's a difference in training. Physician's assistants are master's prepared practitioners. Nurse practitioners first go to nursing school, and then take additional training. But they often are engaged in similar roles. My comment was not about that. My comment was about the psychiatrist part. Because I think everybody's aware, but psychiatrists are medical doctors. We often, in a lot of these school forms, see medical doctor and psychiatrist listed separately. My suggestion is just delete psychiatrist.
Okay.
Medical doctor covers it.
Okay.
Got it.
I'm sorry for that offense.
It's okay. It's not. This is informs everywhere. I don't. It's a minor peeve for me, but there's some people who really get worked up about it. So we'll.
So you're asking for a friend. Got it.
Yeah. Now, I would also say, for the sake of for the sake of brevity, instead of medical doctor or doctor of osteopathy, and by the way, I mean there's other medical degrees out there, like from your physician might just cover it all.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then I had other comments just about the use of family/guardian was that that term was used repeatedly, and I just thought the word family might be a little bit too vague. Does that mean that your grandma can sign it, or your sibling, or your aunt or uncle? And guardian or custodian I thought might be a better term to use. I understand what we're trying to get at there.
Yeah, so we, in general, in the policies, we're switching it to family to be more inclusive, because it's still going to be it's going to have to be who's legally responsible for the child.
Right. Okay.
So in district forms, we're kind of universally moving to family/guardian, because we have a lot of cases where it's grandma, aunt, uncle, etc., who is the legal caretaker for the child.
But it doesn't, if it says that, it doesn't mean, again, like your sibling can sign.
Correct. Yeah.
Because, okay, perfect.
Other comments, questions, concerns? I had a question on 5 on page 2. Just question, why would we not want to create an appropriate plan for a transition back to on-site services? I was just curious why that was dropped.
Dropping it because it's saying at the time that they start to receive it, we are building a transition plan. Sometimes we have students who are going on homebound for a very long time. So it's not necessarily appropriate at the start of homebound services to be building that transition plan back to on-site services. So that was stricken more because of the timing of how it's stated. It's written at the moment they start homebound, we're also building a plan for them to go back.
Okay. All right. Sounds good to me. I had another question on 8. And I understand its need. I'm not disagreeing with it at all. Where do they occur? Libraries? Where?
Yeah, libraries. Also, a very popular place to do homebound is McDonald's. Public places that have Wi-Fi are where it takes place. So we try to locate that as closely as possible to the family, so it's got proximity, but at the same time have it be more of a public setting as opposed to going into the home.
We do not provide transportation then, do we?
We do not.
Okay. All right.
But we do aim for it to be as close as possible to the family, ideally in walking distance if that's possible or necessary.
Those are the only questions I had. Anyone else?
Do the partnering schools that we deal with get this information?
Yes. So our homebound department works closely with each of the partner districts, and so they communicate with them on a regular basis. And so this will be shared with them once it goes to the next board meeting.
Okay.
But the feedback that's in here, our homebound department has worked with our sending schools, and a lot of the changes that are in here are as a result of issues and challenges that they've experienced post-COVID. So it's trying to clear up some of those pieces.
Any other questions, anyone?
I don't have any.
Well, that is it for this month.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Everybody have a good weekend. Amy,
Okay.
I will call you later. Could you have, I thought Wendy would be on the call today.
I did just stop the stream.